Let's now go over orthopedic test 1, which is disc integrity test. And we're going to link longer videos in the text below for some of these tests because it's hard to put into spreadsheets like this and PowerPoint, and it's good to have different recommendations as well. So provocation testing is a really good tool because it can identify the postures, motions, and loads that cause pain or discomfort. So from here, once you figure out what posture and motion and load causes pain, you can avoid these and create a pain-free therapeutic exercise program. So the key tests we're going to do are the heel drop test, seated compression test, and the extension test, neural test, and hip flexion test. So the heel drop test helps identify the possible presence of what's called a Stall's node or a fractured end plate, and will help rule out annulus damage as there's no compromise of compression tolerance unless the spine is flexed. So if someone does test positive to this, meaning they do experience pain, then they need to be referred out to get a proper diagnosis of this. So this is just a really easy way to basically avoid you having to deal with a client who's actually got a major injury that you can't really help. So have the client rise on the ball of the feet and quickly drop down the flat feet, banging on the heel. Pain and discomfort is a positive for this test. So if they have pain and discomfort in this, they need to be referred out to a physiotherapist or a doctor to get diagnosed from this condition of Stall's node and have to rule out all the other damage there. Okay, so really simple tests: go on toes, drop down, see if there's pain. Now for seated compression test, this will help determine if compression intolerance is influenced by posture. So it's often used to assess posterior disc herniations, which may tolerate compression better in a neutral spine compared to flex. So basically you sit down and you get the client to pull themselves into the bench with a neutral spine and pull themselves into a bench with a flex spine. If they have discomfort or apprehension in flexion, a posterior disc herniation is very likely to be a cause of that. From there, refer them out to a physiotherapist for assessment and also avoid any spinal flexion exercises in their program for the meantime because we don't want to aggravate that problem going forward. Now, extension tests will help you identify if disc issues are a problem, okay, and will also help provide some form of relief. So guide the client into an extended posture and compare it with lying prone. If they get relief and stability in extension, it indicates a posterior discogenic issue. Again, refer them out to a physiotherapist for that. If they get no result whatsoever, then it's more than likely not discogenic. If you combine 2 and 3, highly unlikely that it's discogenic-based pain. Now, neural tests differentiate between tight muscles and irritated nerves. They can also prevent nerve aggravation from incorrect treatment approaches, and I'll go through one of those. So the sitting slump test is a really good test to tension the sciatic nerve and irritate the lumbar nerve roots. So flex the neck during the test to see if it exacerbates pain. If the neck flexion increases pain, the sciatic nerve is a tissue of interest. If not, explore other areas. So if someone has a problem here and the sciatic nerve is a tissue, I would highly recommend avoiding things like Jefferson curls and loaded spinal flexion exercises because we don't want to aggravate that. And then finally, hip flexion and rotation tests, and you'll find these a hell of a lot. These are the ones that I actually find the most common, which is basically testing someone with hip flexion and rotation under controlled conditions. These are in the movement screen. The hip flexion test is under the active straight leg raise, and hip rotation is under the squat test. So if you have problems with these and low back pain, and people have stiffness or discomfort in this, it's highly likely that their hip is contributing to their low back pain. This is the most common one I see, and this is the one that we're more than the most qualified to fix. So provocation testing is really good to getting into the root cause of discomfort or pain. Always approach these with caution, okay, as they can recreate the injury mechanism, and they can really help identify what's going on and who you need to send the client to.